A chimpanzee walks upright through a suburban backyard, his gait eerily similar to yours and mine. He sits at a dinner table, sipping coffee with the composure of a gentleman. He prefers human company over his own kind, and when scientists first laid eyes on him, they asked a question that would haunt biology for decades. Is this creature human, ape, or something entirely unprecedented? Meet Oliver, the so-called Humanzee who captivated the world and challenged everything we thought we knew about the boundaries between species. For over 4 decades, his story has been shrouded in mystery, sensationalism, and scientific controversy. But today we're diving deep into the genetic revelations that finally solved the puzzle of Oliver's true identity. Here's what will shock you. Chimpanzees share 99% of our DNA, yet Oliver walked differently, behaved differently, and looked different from any chimp scientists had ever encountered. Was he a genetic anomaly, a missing link, or the result of something far more extraordinary? In the next 25 minutes we'll unravel one of biology's most fascinating mysteries, explore cutting-edge genetic research, and discover why Oliver's story matters more today than ever before. Our story begins in the dense rainforests of the Democratic Republic of Congo, around 1957, where a young chimpanzee was born who would later challenge our understanding of evolution itself. Captured as an infant and eventually brought to the United States, Oliver found himself in the care of Frank and Janet Berger, animal trainers who immediately noticed something extraordinary about their new charge. Unlike every other chimpanzee they had worked with, Oliver displayed an uncanny preference for walking upright. While most chimps knuckle walk and only occasionally stand on 2 legs, Oliver seemed to prefer the bipedal stance that defines human locomotion. His facial features were flatter than typical chimpanzees, his ears were positioned differently, and his jaw had a more human-like structure. But perhaps most striking was his behavior. Oliver appeared to prefer human company over that of other chimpanzees, showing an almost genteel demeanor that captivated everyone who met him. The Bergers, recognizing they had something unique, began showcasing Oliver in their traveling show. Word spread quickly through the entertainment industry, and soon Oliver was making appearances on television, including the legendary Ed Sullivan Show. But it was more than just his entertainment value that caught attention. Scientists began to take notice of this unusual primate who seemed to bridge the gap between human and ape. As Oliver's fame grew, so did the speculation about his origin. With his distinctive upright walk, human-like facial features, and preference for human interaction, whispers began circulating in scientific circles. Could Oliver be something unprecedented in the animal kingdom? Could he be the result of a natural hybrid between human and chimpanzee, a real-life Humanzee? The question seemed almost too fantastic to consider, yet there stood Oliver, challenging conventional wisdom with every upright step he took. His very existence forced scientists to confront uncomfortable questions about the boundaries between species and the possibility of human-ape hybridization. The scientific community's fascination with Oliver reached a fever pitch in the 90s. Here was a creature that seemed to embody the missing link that Darwin's theories suggested must exist somewhere in our evolutionary history. But extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and Oliver's case would demand nothing less than a complete genetic investigation. The first challenge researchers faced was understanding the genetic mathematics of human-chimp hybridization. Humans possess 46 chromosomes, arranged in 23 pairs, while chimpanzees have 48 chromosomes. For a hybrid to be viable, it would theoretically need to have 47 chromosomes, an odd number that would create massive complications during reproduction and development. The probability of such a hybrid occurring naturally and surviving to adulthood was virtually zero, yet Oliver's unusual characteristics demanded investigation. Early genetic testing in the 1970s was primitive by today's standards, but scientists were able to perform basic chromosome counts and blood work. These initial tests revealed that Oliver possessed the standard 48 chromosomes found in all chimpanzees. However, the technology of the time couldn't provide the detailed genetic analysis needed to fully understand Oliver's unique characteristics. John Ely and his team at the University of Chicago, conducted comprehensive genetic testing using advanced techniques that had become available. Their findings were definitive. Oliver was genetically his mitochondrial DNA, which traces maternal lineage, matched that of the central chimpanzee subspecies from the Congo Basin. His nuclear DNA showed no trace of human genetic material whatsoever. But this revelation, rather than ending the mystery, only deepened. If Oliver was genetically identical to other chimpanzees, what explained his remarkable human-like characteristics? The answer would require scientists to reconsider their understanding of genetic variation within chimpanzee populations and the relationship between genetics and physical expression. The University of Chicago study revealed something fascinating about Oliver's genetic makeup. While he was indeed 100% chimpanzee, his specific genetic profile suggested he belonged to a subspecies of central chimpanzees that had been relatively isolated in the Congo Basin. This isolation had led to certain physical and behavioral traits that differed from the more commonly studied Western chimpanzees that most people were familiar with. The genetic confirmation that Oliver was entirely chimpanzee didn't diminish the mystery, it transformed. If Oliver wasn't a hybrid, then what explained his extraordinary characteristics? The answer lay in the remarkable diversity that exists within chimpanzee populations, a diversity that scientists were only beginning to understand. The Great Ape Genome Project, launched in the early 2000s, revealed that chimpanzees display more genetic variation than previously thought. There are 4 recognized subspecies of chimpanzees: the Western chimpanzee, the Nigeria-Cameroon chimpanzee, the Central chimpanzee, and the Eastern chimpanzee. Each subspecies has evolved unique characteristics based on their geographic isolation and environmental pressure. Oliver's genetic analysis revealed that he belonged to the Central chimpanzee subspecies, troglodytes, which inhabits the dense rainforests of the Congo Basin. This subspecies had been less studied than their Western counterparts, and Oliver represented an extreme example of the natural variation that existed within this population. His upright walking behavior, while unusual, fell within the range of natural chimpanzee locomotion patterns. Some central chimpanzees do exhibit more frequent bipedal behavior, particularly in dense forest environments where standing upright provides advantages for navigation and foraging. Oliver's facial features, which had seemed so human-like, were actually within the normal range for central chimpanzees. His flatter face, different ear positioning, and jaw structure were all characteristics that could be found in wild populations of his subspecies. The key difference was that most people had never seen a central chimpanzee before. Their exposure to chimpanzees had been limited to Western chimpanzees, commonly found in zoos and research facilities. But Oliver's behavioral anomalies remained puzzling. His preference for human company, his ability to walk upright for extended periods, and his almost genteel demeanor suggested something beyond simple subspecies variation. Some researchers proposed that Oliver might represent a rare genetic variant within the central chimpanzee population, not a mutant in the science fiction sense, but an individual expressing uncommon recessive traits that occasionally surface in isolated populations. The behavioral aspects of Oliver's personality, his preference for coffee and cocktails, his tool use and his apparent enjoyment of human interaction spoke to the remarkable intelligence and adaptability of chimpanzees. These weren't genetic anomalies but rather examples of how chimpanzees can adapt to human environments when raised in captivity from an early age. Oliver's story forced scientists to confront uncomfortable questions about their own definitions of humanity. If a creature could walk upright, display human-like behaviors, and integrate into human society, what did that mean for our understanding of what makes us uniquely human? The answer, it seemed, was that the boundaries between human and ape were far more fluid than previously imagined. As Oliver's fame grew throughout the 1970s and 1980s, his story became a mirror reflecting humanity's complex relationship with our closest evolutionary relatives. The media sensationalism surrounding the Humanzee phenomenon revealed uncomfortable truths about how society viewed both animals and the boundaries of human identity. The entertainment industry's exploitation of Oliver was troubling on multiple levels. He was paraded as a curiosity, a freak of nature that could walk upright and interact with humans. Television appearances, circus performances, and promotional events treated Oliver as a novelty, rather than a sentient being with complex emotional and social needs. The Humanzee marketing angle, while scientifically unfounded, proved irresistible to promoters who saw dollar signs in Oliver's unique characteristics. But the real tragedy began when Oliver's entertainment value waned. As he matured and became more difficult to manage, the Burgers eventually sold him to a New York attorney, who had plans to use Oliver in a series of television commercials. When those plans fell through, Oliver's situation became increasingly precarious. He was eventually sold to a laboratory in Pennsylvania where he spent years in conditions that were far from suitable for a highly intelligent primate. The laboratory years represent the darkest chapter in Oliver's story. Isolated from other chimpanzees and humans alike, Oliver spent over a decade in conditions that would be considered cruel by today's standards. He was subjected to various experiments and lived in a small concrete enclosure that provided little stimulation or comfort. For a creature who had spent his early years integrating into human society, this isolation was particularly devastating. The ethical implications of Oliver's treatment sparked important conversations about the rights of great apes and the responsibilities of humans towards sentient creatures. Animal rights activists pointed to Oliver's case as an example of how society's fascination with unusual animals could lead to exploitation and suffering. His story contributed to growing awareness about the cognitive abilities of great apes and the need for more humane treatment of these creatures. The psychological impact of Oliver's treatment was evident in his behavior during the laboratory year. Reports from this period describe a creature who had become withdrawn and depressed, a stark contrast to the engaging, human-oriented individual he had been in his youth. The transformation highlighted the importance of social interaction and environmental enrichment for highly intelligent animals. Oliver's story also raised profound questions about identity and belonging. Here was a creature who had been raised among humans, who preferred human company, and who had developed human-like behaviors, yet who was ultimately treated as property to be bought and sold. His case challenged legal and ethical frameworks that viewed animals as mere objects, rather than sentient beings with inherent rights. The turning point in Oliver's story came in 1996, when he was rescued from the laboratory and brought to Primarily Primates, a sanctuary in Texas, dedicated to caring for great apes and other primates. The rescue was orchestrated by animal rights advocates, who had been working for years to improve conditions for laboratory animals, and to provide retirement facilities for aging research subjects. When Oliver arrived at the sanctuary, he was 39 years old, and bore the psychological scars of his laboratory years. The staff at Primarily Primates faced the challenge of rehabilitating a creature who had been isolated from both his own species and the human society he had once known. It was during this period that the comprehensive genetic testing was conducted, finally providing definitive answers about Oliver's true nature. The sanctuary environment allowed Oliver to experience something he had been denied for decades: the companionship of other chimpanzees. Initially, Oliver was hesitant to interact with his fellow primates, having been isolated from them for so long. However, gradually he began to form social bonds and rediscover behaviors that were natural to his species. The transformation was remarkable. The withdrawn, depressed creature from the laboratory began to show signs of his former engaging personality. Oliver's later years at the sanctuary were marked by a sense of peace and contentment that had been absent during his laboratory confinement. He became a beloved resident, known for his gentle demeanor and his continued preference for human interaction. Visitors to the sanctuary often remarked on Oliver's unique presence and his apparent understanding of his special place in the world. The sanctuary staff noted that Oliver retained many of his human-like behaviors throughout his life. He continued to prefer walking upright when possible, maintained his interest in human activities, and showed a level of emotional intelligence that was extraordinary even for a chimpanzee. These observations reinforced the conclusion that Oliver's unique characteristics were the result of his genetic heritage as a central chimpanzee, combined with his unusual upbringing in human society. The completion of the Human Genome Project in 2003 and subsequent advances in genetic sequencing technology have provided new insights into the relationship between humans and chimpanzees.
The 2013 Great Ape Genome Project mapped the complete genetic diversity across all 4 chimpanzee subspecies, providing context for understanding Oliver's unique characteristics within the broader spectrum of chimpanzee variation. Modern genetic analysis has revealed that the 1% genetic difference between humans and chimpanzees is concentrated in specific regions of the genome that control development, brain function, and behavior. These small genetic differences are amplified through regulatory mechanisms that control when and how genes are expressed, leading to the significant physical and behavioral differences between our species. The advances in genetic engineering, particularly CRISPR technology, have made it theoretically possible to create human-animal hybrids, or to insert human genes into animal genome. Recent experiments have involved inserting human brain development genes into monkey embryos, raising ethical questions that echo the concerns raised by Oliver's case decades earlier. These developments have reignited debates about the boundaries between species and the ethics of genetic manipulation. His case serves as a reminder that the boundaries between human and animal are not as clear-cut as once believed, and that our understanding of these boundaries has profound implications for how we treat other species. The ethical frameworks developed in response to Oliver's treatment have become increasingly important as genetic engineering capabilities expand. The modern understanding of epigenetics, how environmental factors can influence gene expression without changing the underlying DNA sequence, provides another lens through which to view Oliver's unique characteristics. His unusual upbringing in human society may have influenced the expression of certain genes, contributing to his human-like behaviors and preferences. Oliver passed away on June 2, 2012 at the age of 55, having lived longer than most chimpanzees in captivity. His death marked the end of an era, but his impact on science, ethics, and our understanding of human-animal relationships continues to resonate today. From a scientific perspective, Oliver's case contributed to a more nuanced understanding of genetic variation within chimpanzee populations. His story highlighted the importance of studying all subspecies of great apes, not just those that are most accessible to research. The genetic analysis of Oliver's DNA provided valuable data for conservation efforts and helped scientists better understand the evolutionary relationships between different chimpanzee populations. As we face new challenges in genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and conservation biology, the lessons learned from Oliver's case remain relevant. His story reminds us that scientific truth is often more complex and nuanced than sensational headlines suggest, and that our treatment of other species reflects our values as a society. Oliver walked upright through a world that didn't quite know what to make of him. In doing so, he walked into our hearts and minds, leaving an indelible mark on our understanding of what it means to be human, to be intelligent, and to be deserving of respect and compassion. His story continues to inspire scientists, ethicists, and advocates who work to create a more humane world for all sentient beings. Today, as we stand on the threshold of new scientific discoveries and ethical challenges, Oliver's story serves as both a cautionary tale and a source of hope. It reminds us that every creature, no matter how different or misunderstood, has inherent value and deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Oliver's journey from Congo orphan to laboratory subject to sanctuary resident mirrors our own evolution as a species, from exploitation to understanding, from fear to compassion, from ignorance to enlightenment. His story teaches us that the most profound mysteries are often found not in what makes us different from other species, but in what we share with them. In the end, Oliver didn't need to be part human to be extraordinary. He was remarkable simply for being himself. If Oliver's incredible story moved you, hit that like button, share this video to spark meaningful conversations, and subscribe for more fascinating stories that challenge our understanding of science, ethics, and what it truly means to be human.